Your first Comic-Con panel that you've ever been a panelist on.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a big room for my first panel too, so I'm a little intimidated.
Right, and talking, we're talking Crisis, which is as big as it gets as well.
Having my own crisis right now.
Right. So what can you tell everybody about Dark Crisis, Young Justice? Like, catch everybody up with the gang. What's been happening?
Yeah, so it just feels central with our babes. It's been a while since we've all really had them together and hanging out in this particular way. They've all gone through a lot of stuff, Tim Drake especially. And so one of the things that we wanted to do with Young Justice is to kind of pay tribute to all of the stuff that has gone on in the past with them. And Crisis in general are typically bad for Young Justice. And to sort of pinpoint that and to talk about that with this generation of heroes, because what I love about them, I grew up with them. I started reading comics when they were starting out, and now they were all set up to be, the next generation of heroes. They were set up to be the next Batman, the next Superman, the next Flash, and they're not anymore. And that is so endemic of like the current situation, I think, of folks like me who are growing up and are like, oh, well, we were told that this was going to happen and this just isn't. And to sort of play tribute with that with the kids, especially the boys, going back into a world that is familiar and not the current day and age, and to really grapple with that and grapple with the fact that like, this isn't, how do we move forward? This isn't, we can't live in the past anymore. And at the same time, having Cassie and Sissy, who I love dearly, also grapple with the past and grapple with each other. And I'm just a big fan of finding whatever emotions are in comics and being like, how do I make this as sad as possible? I learned from the best. And it's been really fun. It's been amazing. My artist Laura has been phenomenal in sort of bringing back the vibes of the 90s and early 2000s feel, and to just play in that, like play in those familiar spaces that I loved deeply. And yeah, but also just to bring them together as a family, bring them together as sort of that found family, and be like, well, who are we now? Who do we get to be now? I think is a really important question for Young Justice to ask themselves.
Mm-hmm. And these are new covers, actually. These have never been shown, so...
Do you want to say who that is on the cover? Can you?
No.
Oh, okay. I want to know.
So that is, yeah, so that's...
I know who it is.
Just you know who that is.
Can we say, can I give a clue? Like a tiny clue?
You can give them a tiny clue, yes.
It is the son of a major villain.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Correct.
Yeah, son of a major villain. That's a good one.
What a tease.
The son of Kite Man.
Trust me, you're gonna get some spoilers here in a minute. I promise.
There is spoilers and other things, but this one I'm gonna keep close to the chest because we don't find out until issue 4, I believe. So but that's what he looks like, and he's the beanie in particular I find to be the most perfect of touches.
Yeah, and then I've been talking with Megan and making sure that the ending to this series definitely ties back into the stuff we're doing in Dark Crisis, because so much of Dark Crisis is about legacy and about, we were talking before about how with the Justice League gone, it's kind of falling on not just these new characters from the last few years, but it's falling on all the different generations. And part of what I wanted to do with Dark Crisis was to level up or show why some of these characters are special and that you can't always rely on the Justice League. And there was like a meta text to that of like, not only can the heroes not always rely on the Justice League, we can't always rely on the Justice League either.
Right.
And it's like with Young Justice in particular, like you were saying, and the Titans, like so many of the other groups sometimes get shoved to the side. And with this story, with the Dark Army, with Deathstroke, it kind of falls on all of these other characters to save the day. When normally, there's a line in, I think it's issue 3, we'll talk about 3 in a second, issue 3 where Black Adam takes charge of the team that John built, and there's a moment, so here's the cover issue 3 by Daniel. There's a moment in issue 3 where Black Adam is trying to explain to all these heroes that they need to kill the villains. Like, this is the only way out, is to kill the villains at this point, and he wants to kill Count Vertigo in the Hall of Justice and hang his body out in front as a warning. to all of the villains that if you mess with us, this is what will happen. And that obviously causes a big conflict. Like John really steps up with his angry red eyes and is like, if you do this, it's on, you know, and they really get into a big fight. They don't get into a fight, they have an argument. And there's a moment where Black Adam is about to do it. He's about to snap Count Vertigo's neck in the Hall of Justice. And he's yelling at them and he's like, you have to stop relying on mommy and daddy to come and save you. They're not coming to save you this time. And that's part of what the lesson of some of these younger characters and characters like Injustice and Megan and I were talking before the panel about so much of what Dark Crisis is about. We've talked about with Legacy, but it's about how, to me, like I've been reading DC Comics my whole life. I'm sure a lot of us in this room have done that as well, you know. And like when I first started reading DC, it was at a time period where there was a lot of new stuff coming in. You know, we got to have Tim and Connor and Bart and Cassie and Kyle and the other Connor with an O. Like all of these new characters were coming in, and that was my point of view into the DCU. And I think the lesson I learned about that as a creator was the DC was at its best when it's growing. And when the mythology of DC is continuing to grow, that is when it's at its best. Like my favorite eras of DC are these eras where there were multiple families of characters in the DCU, and they were all working together, and it was, you know, that's how they were saving the day, was them all working together. And being perfectly candid, there was a time at DC where it felt like it became about making everything smaller and narrowing everything down. And as a fan and as a creator, I found that frustrating. In the last few years, I would say the last 6 years, it's been about growing again. And so much of Dark Crisis is about that. It's about that the DCU needs to continue to grow, continue to have its mythology, but it also means having some of the older stuff, the classic stuff that we love, working with the newer stuff as well, which will go into the next slide.
Right. I was going to say, with issue 3, speaking of legacy and you know, the past and present heroes, we have a pretty big reveal of the arrival of the Justice Society of America.
Yeah.
Woo!
Where have they been for the last 15 years?
I mean, how can you do a story about Legacy and not have the JSA? Come on, like,
Yes.
you had to have the JSA
Correct.
in it, you know, and they come to help join the fight. Those pages on the left are new pages we've never shown before. It's about how in the Green Lantern Corps, they go to Sector 666 because Necron's Black Lantern has been restored and they don't know why. But Hal believes that if Necron is working with Pariah and the Great Darkness, maybe this is a way, maybe this is a path to find them. And when Hal and Kyle and Joe go in, that's what that page in the middle is that they're sucked into the darkness, and you get to see them as Black Lanterns, but you also get to see Hal recreating that classic shot with all the rings, but instead a bunch of black rings. I hope when you look at this, you can really tell how much Daniel loves the Green Lanterns. And how much he really puts into that. But yeah, we have the JSA in issue 3. We have the first appearance of Red Canary, in issue 3. There's a lot that happens in this issue.
Who's Red Canary?
That's a secret. You gotta read the book.
Wait, like her identity's a secret, or she has
You gotta read the book, Tom. You gotta read the book, Tom.
Everything about her is a secret. How much do these comic books cost? Like, is it more or less a Netflix movie?
But, you know, with issue 3, you start to learn a little bit more about what Pariah has been up to and what his real goal is, and that will lead us into what happens in issue 4 that I think we're going to talk about now. Again, we're getting super into spoilers now. This is like total spoiler territory.
We're in spoiler country now, so yeah. So besides their